Boom, and welcome to another video of the Flowing Dutchman. In this video I'm going to discuss a very fascinating, or at least fascinating to me, subject, and that is the definition of 300 and 10-2 as it refers to a traditional swing. Enjoy, guys. Now, if you're not into maces, this might be the most boring video ever. But if you are, this might be very interesting. Because I've been working on this for a while now, as in terminology. As I know that 10-2 means when you have a clock, you would go from 10 o'clock to 2 o'clock. And I've seen some videos about people talking about it, like what is exactly a 10-2, and then I started to understand that it's like 240 degrees. So you got a full 360, which is 360 degrees, and then you've got the 10-2, which is supposedly to be 240 degrees. So as I started to see, okay, so what would be the perfect technique of a 10-2, I started to understand that I was definitely not going 240 degrees. So this would actually be 240 degrees. Now there is something interesting happening here, that you see the mace has to come over the shoulder, and what it does when it comes over the shoulder, and you'll see the difference from the side a little bit more, is that it actually comes back to the same plane as the hands. Well, if I would do what I'd call 300, you'll notice that the hands are always in front of the globe. So that's very interesting to me, because if you pull it over the shoulder, then it means that the weight also pushes forward, which then again has to be pushed back because you want it to go behind the body. So ideally, with a swing that never really has a stopping point, the only stop point is basically the touch towards the hip and then push out. If your mace has to come forward and then backward, it kind of bounces forward. So I noticed that especially with this smaller mace, it's very difficult to keep it in front of the shoulder without making some... So what I noticed is that even with the attention of proper technique, like I know my techniques within mace training, I find it very difficult to actually get it to the 240 degrees without the exercise. It's kind of starting to become a little sloppy. So you'll notice that whenever you come full and have the head as low as possible without really trying to hold the mace up from your hands, you'll notice that it will drop very quickly. And your hands have to move all the way behind your head as the mace is already dropping, which means you have less momentum because the mace is already dropping down before you can reach the bottom part of the neck. And usually that is the moment where the momentum is the biggest. So this doesn't seem very efficient to me. So I've also seen some people call that move the 300. And I like that name better, so I've been using that for a while, because I also use the 360 and I like the distinction between going 360 degrees or 300 degrees. But so you would also call that like an 11-1, right? If you would do this swing like a 300 or 11-1, and by all means you can call it an 11-1, just 300 is a lot easier. You'll start to pull over the shoulder, and this is quite similar to what they do in India. So in the West there's this technique, I think it's originally developed by Jake Shannon. I'm not really sure about that. Could have been on it too, but the idea is to press up the weight and pull it over again. While in India they usually go closer to the shoulder because they go much heavier. So you want to be able to pull it over the shoulder, and once you press it up and then pull it down, you won't be able to just press it or pull it over the shoulder. So that is the reason, and that is The reason is that they always come as close, like I've been with Phony Palawan for a few times, and it's always keep it close to the trap, close to that neck, all the way, pull it, pull it, pull it, pull it right there.
From more closer.
Closer to the shoulder.
Yes, because if I will swing the heavy jori, then if I will swing like this, then it will be go down.
Right.
But if I will keep it very closer, then it will be in my hand.
Right.
Like this.
Heavy gada.
Yes.
So it makes more sense that mace actually has to go over the shoulder instead of going in front of it. And this is basically the difference. Where do we pull the mace towards? Now there is another distinction that I'd like to share with you, and that is when you're using a heavier mace, it is actually easier to go into that 10-2 position or move. And this I find very interesting because the original maces, the steel ones, or Macebells, they were taller. So you'll notice that easier position here is much easier to hold, and you have much more of a resting pause when you go in front of the shoulder, which means that a 10-2, which is much more applicable to a mace that is, well, this one is 130 centimeters, and with this one it just about to starts to feel a little bit comfortable. So you'll need a very, very, very large mace for the 10-2 if you would go very specific to the name to work. Now I find this very interesting because when you start to pull it over here to that same position as I was doing with my regular mace, you'll notice that I still have to pull it inwards, so it doesn't really want to come there. So I can imagine that this name was, well, it was basically named because they were swinging very large maces, and it's much more easy to balance over here, right there. Very interesting. So, but again, this mace is a lot taller than you would see gadas in India, right? They're usually about 115 centimeters, maybe 110 centimeters. So you usually don't find these large maces over there or these tall lengths. So these are kind of my thoughts on the idea of a 10-2 or a 300 in comparison to like a 360 or what they are doing in India. I hope you found this video interesting, and if you want to share your thoughts on it, please do comment below on the video and leave a like if you like the video, subscribe, all the good stuff. I'll see you in the next video.
Dutchman.